Colson Montgomery keeps hitting home runs, so let's discuss if the White Sox should already entertain extending the potential face of the franchise, along with some other rookies, on today's episode of Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and contributor for SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fan Side of the Network, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. Additionally, follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Well, the rookies are producing, so let's discuss if the White Sox should entertain extending any of these players to get some team-friendly deals or buy up some RBers in the first segment. Then let's discuss the team making a terrible decision to bring back Mike Clevinger and Bryce Wilson to the active roster. And finally, it's Monday, so I'll do a weekly minor league report. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. All right, so here's my standard for the White Sox to entertain extending any of these rookies to buy out the RBers. If money is a huge motivating factor for these guys to be great, don't extend them. Play the ARB game. Let's avoid another Eloy Jimenez and Yoan Moncada situation where it was widely reported and speculated before, like guys like Ryan McGuffey of the Recap White Sox podcast basically reported that they stopped working out. They stopped keeping themselves in shape once they got paid. You know, they got their money and they're like, I'm good. I don't really need to work anymore. And that was a lot of injury list visitations for those guys. And the one thing I've also thought about since I decided to finally tackle the subject, I know I've pushed it off last week. I wanted to tackle it last week, but now I'm getting into it now, is I do think you got to figure out what is the appropriate sample size before you do put your conviction into giving a player a long-term, decent-sized financial commitment. Is it 46 games? Is it before they've even played a major league game? You know, some organizations do decide, like the White Sox did, I believe I think it was with Eloy, or was he after? No, I know with Luis Robert Jr. Hey, we have so much conviction in this player, we're going to give him the money. Or Jackson Chourio. This guy's going to be a stud. It's a huge roll of the dice, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. For me, I would like to have at least, for me, again, I have a more low risk tolerance. I'm not, a high gambler type of guy. I would say you got to give maybe at least get a 3-month sample size at least. Obviously, you'd love a full season. Heck, technically, you don't have to pay a guy at least through before they reach arbitration. You can just keep doing the renewal game, although it makes negotiations a little tricky. And then finally, in that sample size, if you do see something that there's, like a hole that screams, you might eventually want the eject button in the ARB game where you could just non-tender a guy to get off the ride, then you got to look into that. So you got to put those 3 factors into place and then say, is it worth giving these guys the money? Therefore, ask yourself, if Colson Montgomery's 15 home runs in 46 games is enough for you, then obviously work out a 7 or 8 year extension. And if you think you've seen enough from Kyle Teel, Edgar Quero, and Shane Smith to say, let's get these guys locked up so we don't have to play this ARB game, go for it. And to me, all 4 should be locked up so long as being great, the driven to just be great and love of the game is their motivating factor. And that means you got to get to know these guys, know your players. Because I think that was a huge thing Rick Hahn and his previous administration completely missed on. I don't think they got into what really motivates these guys. And there's nothing wrong with a player being motivated by money. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't give them the big bag of money then, and then they can just slack off the rest of the time. And in terms of, hey, whoa, you're already saying paying Colson Montgomery, isn't he hitting 224? You got to remember, we're living in an OPS world now. And Colson already has an 820 OPS. I mean, obviously the average has to get up, but he is driving the ball. He is crushing the ball. And I feel like he's clearing every hurdle. As everydayers, you guys remember, I set 4 hurdles. I was expecting him to hit 20 to 30 home runs next year. He has 5 home runs in September. He'll have already reached that mark. And I like how he already has the mindset at the plate of assess, adjust, go boom to the pitchers. It's like he already anticipates pitchers are going to adjust to him, so he's already getting ready to adjust back. And you got some folks already arguing he's going to be the face of the franchise. This is MLB Network. At MLB Network, I got the tweet up there. Colson Montgomery is turning heads. He is quickly becoming the face of the White Sox. Greg Ammensinger. I mean, think about that. You're talking about the face of the franchise. Wouldn't you want that guy locked up? Now you're going to pay him Bobby Witt Jr. money? I don't know if you're going to give him a $100 million deal. That type of stuff. Sean Anderson, former host of this very show and the host of the CHGO CHGO White Sox podcast, he tweeted this out at Sean_Anderson. Good question by at BSB Tossed in the at Future Sox chat. Mocking a Colson extension around Basillo's. That's what, Samuel Basillo last week with the Orioles signed an extension after only playing like 10 games or whatever. And he's got, I think it would be 7 years, $62.5 million, $25.5 million guaranteed. So yeah, if you can get him on year 1 at $1 million, year 2, $2 million, year 3, $3.5 million, 7, 12, and then, a couple of team-friendly options, I say do it. Because again, you like to get the average up. I can understand for those that are going to jump into the comments and be like, no, you can't extend them. Yeah, there are some certain things. There are still some holes in his game. Again, he's hitting 224. The on-base percentage still has to get up to where it was like at the minors, above 300. So, maybe you might want to have the ARB game in case you need to eject. But he isn't screaming Gavin Sheets yet. I mean, Gavin Sheets hit 15 home runs. He was a supporting piece. Colson Montgomery's already hit 15 home runs in 47 games. And you're like, yeah, this guy's got the chance to be a stud with what he's also doing in the field. And then think about it. Teel is leading the team in F4 right now at 1.5. So he already has reached a raised floor player. And the Sox need those guys just as much as they need superstars. But he's also given flashes that he could be a superstar player. He's got a 779 OPS. And obviously I want to see more home runs. But if he's already reached this, the floor that everybody thought of as being a solid, everyday big league catcher, now it's just, hey, let's get him to a ceiling. Same thing with Quero, although he's at 0.4 F4, but I think he's got a good approach to the plate, and I think you can have both of them as your catchers, as long as you have the DH spot open, or if you're willing to entertain having Teel play some left field because he did in college. And then Shane Smith, he's cleared the hurdle that he can bounce back from adversity. The stuff is back to being nasty after that terrible June and July. He looks like that pitching ninja, consistent highlight pitcher. So those are the guys that I would say, hey, let's get them extended. Let's get them locked up. But then, do the White Sox also entertain extending Brandon Montgomery once he's ready to come up for the show? Because I'll get into the third segment. He's raking, and I think Rick Hahn thought, well, Chris Sale and Jose Quintana agreed to those team-friendly deals, and it worked out so well. Let's always go that route. And I don't think he realized those guys were still driven to be great for love of the game and just to be driven to be great. And Yohan Moncada and Eloy Jimenez, they were more in the Anthony Rendon standard that I like to call it, where it's like, hey, you got to assess if they're driven like this is just their job and they want to make the most money possible, then don't pay them. And then with the other guys, I think you got to take it by a case-by-case basis. Is Chase Maidroth and Lenine Sosa everyday players? They still have to determine that. And Miguel Vargas, he's a good raised floor player, but could you upgrade over him? Those are the things they have to look at. Well, speaking of upgrades, the White Sox got more promising young pitchers in their farm system, yet with rosters expanding today, they're bringing back Mike Clevinger, and they already brought back Bryce Wilson to replace Aaron Savali. Let's discuss how this is a massive mistake after the break. Hey, Locked On White Sox fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. And use my limited time promo code SEASON and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already need. At first, I thought, hey, this is too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code SEASON for a limited time 25-cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code SEASON. Offer vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. And the NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel's traditional money lines, spreads, and over-unders, they're fun to play, and I'm always telling you about that. But if you want to win some serious money, or at least double or triple your cash, play FanDuel's props, parlays, or futures. They got a weekly special right now at plus 1,600 for any quarterback throwing over 150 yards in week one. So say put $10 on that. And any of the 32 NFL QBs put up that monster passing number, you could win, say, $160. And they got a 4-leg same-game parlay for Chicago and Minnesota next Monday, featuring DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift, Aaron Jones, and Justin Jefferson, all scoring an anytime touchdown. That is at plus 3607. So $10 on that. And if it hits, that's going to pay out $360.17. FanDuel makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter, and I have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. Locked On has put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. And everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. And you can also find the link in the show notes. Hey, thanks for helping us out. All right, so I hate how the White Sox just can't quit Mike Clevinger. And it also seems like they just can't quit Bryce Wilson either. And Clevinger bros, this isn't even my bias against Mike Clevinger as a human being. This is completely taking him out as a human being for why I think it's just terrible that they're bringing him back up when rosters expand today. Because again, you get 2 more extra slots to add some players. And the White Sox, according to James Fegan of Sox Machine, are bringing back Mike Clevinger. This is a 34-year-old pitcher who we last saw struggling to throw strikes in the bullpen at the beginning of the season. And he's going to get a shot to showcase himself again to a league that has rejected him now 3 times on the open market. So again, Clevinger bros, before you bust in, I'm sorry. The 2023 season, that was 2 years ago. Last year, he was bad. This year, he was bad. And he wasn't exactly setting AAA on fire. And he's 34 years old. He's not going to be on the next good team. And hopefully, he's not on the next good team. Because hopefully, Father Time should see to that. Because it just seems like this organization cannot quit Mike Clevinger. And now it seems like the same with Bryce Wilson, although Bryce Wilson isn't a terrible human being. Reportedly, allegedly. Said reportedly, allegedly, Clevinger bros. But he wasn't helping the White Sox this year in his role. Remember, he was supposed to be a swingman. He was supposed to be, decent reliever, long reliever, swing guy, could do a couple starts and hopefully you flipped at the deadline for something. He flamed out. Had an ERA over 6. But yet he's the guy that they picked to replace Aaron Savali, who got waived over the night last night or the previous night, and the Cubs surprisingly picked him up. Now, I think the White Sox probably waived Savali to A, give him a shot to latch on with a contender, and B, I think you could still, that yesterday was the deadline to get somebody on waivers where a team can just take them and the salary's off the books. And I think, even though the Brewers were paying some of his salary, it was still, I think he was making like $5 million. And it was terrible. And now the White Sox have officially lost the Andrew Vaughn trade. But it's one thing to trade Andrew Vaughn to get Aaron Savali because, look at the context. At the time, you needed someone to eat up innings because your rotation was starting to get gassed because it was very young. You had some injuries like Martin Perez. I think they made the move when Jonathan Cannon did go on the 15-day out with that back injury. So they needed somebody to eat some innings. And there was the potential that Savali could be a trade deadline asset, potential keyword. And it was just time to move on from Vaughn. I'm sorry. We got to stop acting like he's a sacred cow. He was at AAA. He was struggling so bad. He's been a guy that produces for 5 weeks every year to get his numbers up to a replacement level. And then he's been nothing but a disappointment. And if he thrives in Milwaukee, sometimes, the change of scenery works. And yes, sometimes you're going to make bad trades. But it's not going to bust this franchise long-term because you can always find a first baseman. I mean, they sort of have one now with Miguel Vargas once he returns from injury. You also acquire Curtis Mead, a former top 100 prospect too, that can potentially play first. Even though Lenyn Sosa sometimes can't find the bag, he's having a much better productive overall season than Andrew Vaughn. So you've got coverage there. But going with Clevinger and Wilson, although again, is Wilson going to get DFA'd again? Because was he just covering, Savali's spot? We'll see what it is because there's been no official announcement yet on the roster spot. But going with those guys, it's organizational negligence, especially give Clevinger another opportunity when James Fox of FutureSox.net, he tweeted this out, and I fully agree with this. At JamesFox917, I got the tweet up for those watching on YouTube. Tanner McDougal, Peyton Paulette, Tyler Schweitzer, Mason Adams, and Shea Murphy are all Real 5 eligible for the hashtag White Sox in December. With the exception of Adams, those others are way better September options than Mike Clevinger. I don't understand this thought process at all. And the only thing that I can think of is all those guys that James just mentioned. And don't forget, the White Sox got 2 decent pitching prospects back from the Tampa Bay Rays that I would consider better than Mike Clevinger. At least I would consider give them an opportunity before Clevinger. Either they're all completely just gassed because they're throwing a lot of innings down in the minors, or man, do they really value Double-A Birmingham competing for a playoff spot? Which, once again, if that's the case, winning in the minor leagues doesn't matter. It's nice, but it doesn't matter. The development matters. Individual play is what matters in the minor leagues. Again, it's nice to have that intangible, but it doesn't matter. And this team is missing the boat, again, on getting some precious big league development for some of these young arms. And it's not like they're asking Clevinger to start. Per Fegan, he's coming out of the bullpen where he failed. And if the plan 2 is to bullpen Savali's spot for the rest of the season, why? Then just bring back Sean Burke and Jonathan Cannon. Bring them back for a couple starts. See if they've already fixed themselves. Because Clevinger, this is data, Clevinger bros. He didn't throw strikes this year. 2.294 whip in 5 2/3 innings. That's all you needed to know, that this guy cannot throw strikes in the majors. He didn't throw strikes last year either in 4 starts before needing surgery. He's oft injured. He's not going to give you an opportunity to help you in 2027. Some of the guys that I just mentioned can. And I mean, Chris Getz is making these 2024 mistakes all over again, where we're just wasting time. Because Mike Clevinger and Bryce Wilson need some time. Why is Cam Boozer and Tyler Alexander still getting appearances, especially in high leverage? I don't know. Well, speaking of development, let's get to this week's Minor League Monday report, because some of these top prospects, they had a good week. Let's discuss after the break. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right means cashing in. With football back, PrizePicks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. And I love how PrizePicks is just such a simple concept that can potentially double my money. You think Chicago is going to keep Justin Jefferson out of the end zone? Just pick less on the 0.5 rush plus reception TD projection. You also think J.J. McCarthy is going to play like a scared rookie on next Monday? You can pick less on 221.5 passing yard projections. And hey, we've all seen Justin Fields have low passing yard totals. So maybe you go with the less on the 174.5 passing yard projections. And the best part, even if one of your picks misses, PrizePicks invented the flex play, so you can still double your money. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox, or wherever they get their podcasts. This show's available on all major podcast platforms. Hope you're having a great Labor Day weekend. So far, mine had a nice dinner with some old neighbors that moved to a little different location, but it was a lot of fun. And today I'm going to try to paint my daughter's room. So we'll see if I can actually paint a room. I've never done it before. I've done some wallpapering when I was a kid with my dad, but that's a totally different concept. So we'll see how this goes. Well, the White Sox top 10 prospects in MLB Pipeline had a great weekend, at least most of them. Now, Billy Carlson and Jaden Foskey, they're still actually in the transition league, so they're not even at the official complex league. So yeah, there's also a smaller league where these draft picks can play some games, but it's not the official complex league. So they're getting adjusted to the professional game, that type of stuff. So I'm not going to include them in this update. And for everybody else, though, good weekend for the White Sox top 10. Brandon Montgomery, the White Sox #1 prospect per MLB Pipeline, is raking at AA. And Hagen Smith finally showed the special that he needs to show to make it that, show that it was worthwhile that the White Sox took him with the number five overall pick last year, because they passed on the now #1 overall prospect per MLB Pipeline, Connor Griffin, and the #6 prospect in the rankings, J.J. Weatherholt. You don't think the White Sox could have used some of those hitting prospects? But at least they did mitigate, taking Smith by circling back in the second round to take Caleb Bonehmer, who had a great first 5 games at High A Winston-Salem. But for Braden, he's hitting .303 with an .832 OPS in 29 games at AA. He had 5 hits in the Barons' 6 games last week, which included 3 doubles and 1 multi-hit game. Getting excited about this guy. Obviously, the strikeouts are still high, but if he can hit for power and if he can produce an 800 OPS or greater, then thumbs up on that one. And I think then right field will finally be solved. In terms of the team's #2 prospect, Noah Schultz, he's back to an innings limit as he returns from that knee injury. Did only go 3 innings yesterday, allowed 2 runs on 3 hits, walked 1, struck out 1. But hey, the ERA is now under 10. So, but remember, the White Sox are going to be looking more at the stuff and the command, because you do play at that bandbox in Charlotte. It's very hitter friendly. So, you can't always look at the ERA. If it's low, yeah, look at it. But if it's high, you got to then look at what's the whip like, what are the strikeouts like, that type of stuff. But #4 prospect, Caleb Bonehmer, he hit .333 with a 1.344 OPS and 2 home runs in his first 5 games at High A Winston-Salem. Gets the promotion and then shows why he should have been promoted. And those 2 home runs, yeah, they came in his first career multi-dinger game in the minors for him. That was yesterday when he went 3 for 4. This guy has a chance to be a dude. And he's a top 100 prospect. So, while yes, I would love to have Griffin, who I will admit it probably has a way higher ceiling than Bonehmer or J.J. Weatherholt, Bonehmer at least mitigates passing on those guys, because if he turns into a guy, if he turns into a dude, then you're going to be like, okay, well, at least you circle back. At least you use good process. You took the best player available that you thought on your board, within the top 5, which I think is good business. So that's kind of a good thing to see. And, I slammed Hagen Smith last week on this show and also on SouthsideShowdown.com. Well, for at least one start, I look loud wrong. And again, if I'm wrong, great. That means Hagen Smith is producing, and that's what we want. But he does go 5 innings, allows just 2 hits, and struck out 8 in his most recent start. And I would say that this is the first outing where he looked special since probably spring training. And he does have to be special because you do think about it, the Sox passed on a lot of elite special hitting talent to take Smith. So yeah, you kind of have to have a high standard for Hagen Smith. So let's see if he can give us more of those great outings, those special outings, and less of the struggle bus outings that we've seen all season. Tanner McDougal, who ranks number 7, who should be up, not Mike Clevinger. He should be in the big league team right now. We should be looking at a video of him sitting in the manager's office being told, hey, you're going to the show. Even if it's, again, I want him developed to a ceiling, but even though he's now on an innings limit and you want to get him some work in the bullpen, hey, give him a taste and get him on the 40-man roster, because that's a guy that I would say you should be afraid of getting picked in the Rule 5 draft, because, again, he can hit 99. One of the reasons why I'm sure the White Sox took Shane Smith is, hey, this guy can hit 99 on the gun sometimes. So, maybe put him on there. He's working 3 innings, though, pretty much. That's been his innings limit. Did 3 innings of shutout ball on the 29th at AA, had 4 Ks. Christian Opper, the team's number 8 prospect. The lefty goes 5 innings yesterday for High A Winston-Salem, allows just 2 hits and strikes out 6. Again, I'm excited about him, too, as well. Number 9 prospect, Kyle Lodice, or Lodice, I think it's Lodice. He's the only one in the top 10 who's been on the struggle bus last week. But again, he was more of, I think MLB Pipeline is way, way high on him, because everything else I read about him was more like, this is a guy that they kind of had to go, with a little bit of a low floor. A raised floor, low ceiling type of guy with their bonus pool money after going with Billy Carlson and Jaden Foskey in the first and second round, knowing that they're probably going to have to overslot them or pay them slot, and your bonus pool money was a little bit, short. So they went with a guy that had solid production at college, and that makes sense. So I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, Kyle's struggling, because he might be a little bit over-ranked. And MLB Pipeline will do that sometimes. Number 10 prospect, George Wolcott, gets 6 hits over the week with 7 RBI and 3 doubles. No home runs, though, but hey, it's good to see that he is, obviously he's at 225 average overall, but again, he's got a good OPS. I'm actually surprised that they aren't moving him along. At some point, you got to be like, do you want him to buy a house in Kannapolis? At some point, you got to wonder, I know he's 19, but he did have a full year last year at Kannapolis. Like, maybe you might want to give him a few more weeks at High Winston, get him the next challenge. I don't know. Colson Montgomery is officially graduated from prospect status, at least per MLB Pipeline standards. So re-entering MLB Pipeline's top 30 is Samuel Zavala at number 30. He has a 349, 404, 419 slash line over his past 10 games. This is a guy that was looking like a bust last year after coming over in the Dylan Cease trade. He had a 184 average and a 641 OPS last year at High Winston-Salem. This year, his average is 254 and 727. So again, I appreciate guys that rage against the dying of their career. So I really appreciate, I give them credit for, turning things around. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. But before I go, it's another big moment on Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside 2-time AP Coach of the Year, Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. And I'll be back tomorrow with your mailbag questions. You can still get them in. Email me to lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com or post them on X, formerly Twitter, @LockedOnSox. And feel free to leave comments about today's discussion regarding should the White Sox extend any of these rookies. the big mistake that they're making by bringing back Bryce Wilson and Mike Clevinger and this week's Minor League Monday Report. Again, you can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at Todd J. Dub, or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day. Talk to you tomorrow.